Kia ora koutou, nei rā te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa, ko Erena Wikaire toku ingoa nō te tai tukura hau. My name's Erena Wikaire and I'm from Northern New Zealand. Today I'm going to be talking about my PhD research as a kaupapa Māori health researcher that looks at Rongoā Māori, which is the traditional Indigenous healing system of Māori, the Indigenous peoples of Aotearoa. Just going to share my screen. So my PhD research talks about the past, present and future of traditional Indigenous healing, what was, is and will be Rongoā Māori. So in terms of my approach to my research, I took a Māori worldview approach and used the kaupapa Māori research methodology. So from a Māori worldview, this means that there is an understanding and acceptance of mātauranga Māori, which is the traditional Māori knowledge system. And part of that system includes our traditional Māori creation stories. So stories about the creation of the world, stories about the creation of the natural environment and the elements within it. And also stories around the creation of human beings and other beings within the natural universe and what is our place as humans and Indigenous peoples within that space. There's also a key understanding of whakapapa related to my research. So often we talk about whakapapa in terms of our genealogy, in terms of our heritage links. But in this research, we were thinking about whakapapa from a Māori worldview, which includes understanding our relation to other humans, but also other entities within the natural environment, whether they be physical or metaphysical. So that might be understanding our histories over time, over generations, through past, present and future, understanding our connections to the natural environment like trees and plants and rivers and mountains that we often reaffirm and reconnect to through our pepeha or traditional introductions, and also to tupuna or atua. So we position atua as our natural environment and also connections to ancestors who may have passed, and mokopuna tamariki or children who may not yet be in this world. In the context of Māori and Aotearoa, we also need to acknowledge the whakapapa of our recent history in terms of the arrival of European and other settlers to Aotearoa, to New Zealand, and that at the moment we're in a space of interaction whereby we exist in Aotearoa under the Treaty of Waitangi, whereby we have an agreement between Māori and the Crown in order to govern Aotearoa and what happens there. And the other part of this research focused around tikanga. So basically mātauranga Māori, whakapapa and tikanga work basically hand in hand. And tikanga in this sense is really talking about how we go about doing things and what it is that we do and how that is informed by mātauranga and whakapapa. So I've just written creative potential there in terms of sometimes tikanga is guided by mātauranga and whakapapa, and in many cases tikanga is a self-determined action. So how you might interpret that for whatever purpose it is that you need, then tikanga can be also very creative. So just thinking about Rongoā Māori as a traditional Indigenous health system, and before we do that, I just wanted to talk about what do we think that health systems are at the moment? And I've just included some pictures here around things that might remind us of a health system. So in New Zealand, we have hospitals, we have pharmacies, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have chemists, we have medication, we have advice about healthy eating, we have advice about quitting smoking. We have a system that is quite heavily funded by the government and is predominantly based on Western concepts of health, so Western healing systems. And there is some inclusion of funding for complementary and alternative health systems, as they're called, which includes things like acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, and also Rongoā Māori, and that is funded at the moment in terms of health services around the country, very few actually, and Rongoā Māori practitioners, so practitioners of traditional Māori healing are funded by the health system to provide services such as miri, which is a type of traditional Māori massage, kōrero, which is really having discussions, and then karakia, which is a traditional Māori prayer or incantation. And that is the specifically funded part of Rongoā that you see in the health system today. So just thinking about that in terms of going into talking about Rongoā a bit more. So just a bit of background. The question was asked, where is the place of Rongoā? So where does Rongoā currently fit in the health system? And what it was what it was, it is what it is, and it will be what it will be. So what was it? And prior to European arrival, Rongoā Māori was the traditional Māori system of healing. So it was a fully functioning, complex and complete health system that was derived from mātauranga Māori and really informed our way of being, knowing and doing in a way that maintained the health and well-being of Māori. What it is at the moment, Rongoā Māori has endured hundreds of years of colonisation. So there have been many changes to the way we think about Rongoā, and part of the study is to look into what has happened there. And what will it be? So really a question around this from this research was, what is our understanding of Rongoā? How has that been impacted by colonisation? How can we decolonise our understanding of Rongoā in order to make sure that the direction we are heading is in line with our aspirations and goals? So at the moment there is and there has been for a long time Māori aspirations for access to Rongoā Māori. We have a preference for our traditional healing systems, and at the moment what is funded is a small fragment of Rongoā Māori as a complete system. And actually a lot of the time Rongoā is invisible. So when you are trying to access healthcare, you're engaging with the health system, and often the only option that is offered to you in terms of healthcare is a Western medicine option. And Rongoā Māori as a traditional Indigenous healing system for Aotearoa, as Māori we have a right to access that system and those options. So for this research project, one of the main aims was to renormalise whānau use of Rongoā Māori in everyday life. So this was looking at Rongoā Māori in really a health promotion context. So in the spaces where we would go about traditional Māori ways of being and doing, that was maintaining our health and well-being in an everyday life setting. So really trying to focus on the health promotion side of things. The research involved key informant interviews with experts and specialists, mostly Māori across multiple sectors in relation to the research topic. Whānau focus groups were held as well, and those were based in Ōrākei in central Auckland. And there was lots of other information gathering that happened in terms of scoping the environment and what's been going on in terms of Rongoā and healing and health equity and Māori health over the last couple of years. Most of the data that was collected was qualitative, and thematic analysis was used to identify themes across the data, and a critical discourse analysis was used to look at what people were saying and how that may have been influenced by colonisation, and how we can decolonise our thinking around that. So in terms of results, the results are grouped in terms of what was and is rongoā, so unpacking what it is that we think rongoā was, and in this context it's prior to European arrival, or what is our understanding of what rongoā is. And then what happened, and what happened is really in relation to colonisation and what has happened to rongoā as an Indigenous health system over time. And then what is happening now, so discussions around what's happening now in terms of Rongoā Māori, but also what is happening for Māori in terms of our health and well-being, and what are the things that are perhaps making us unhealthy, and then what's happening in terms of how we are trying to access care, how we are operating in our daily lives that may be contributing to our well-being. And then the last question is what will be of Rongoā Māori? Where are we going? Where are we heading? And what is it that we need to be mindful about when we're thinking about trying to access Rongoā Māori in future? So I'm just going to start with some quotes from some of the participants talking about what is rongoā. So rongoā is about understanding where you are, who you are, and what your connections are. So this is really linked to understanding your whakapapa, your pepeha, and your ancestral connections to whānau, and to the natural environment. Understanding that the ngahere, or forest, was not a stagnant, inanimate concept. It's a living, breathing person, really. When Māori introduce ourselves, we talk about our mountains and our seas for the reason that they are literally a part of our whakapapa. They're not just icons, physical icons. So the ngahere is a part of our whakapapa, and the purpose of rongoā is to maintain that knowledge, understanding, and connection to ngahere. For Pākehā who believe they are the centre of the universe and the world revolves around them, it's too hard to fathom. But for Māori who understand we are just a small blip in this whole huge cosmology, it's like that makes perfect sense. So again, Rongoā Māori is about understanding our position as humans in the wider space of the natural universe, and how it is that we interact with those things. These quotes again say, so before there was no hospitals, no doctors, how did Māoridom survive? We go back to the tohunga, to the kōrero atua. They were able to read the moon, the stars, the sun. They had to read to survive. So that just talks about being able to read tohu, or signs, I guess, that are presented in nature that help us to survive, to support our well-being. The next quote says, healing practices in our traditional knowledge was legally and violently outlawed. So this is talking about what started to happen very early on in terms of European arrival in New Zealand. Colonisation has, by and large, taught us that the answers live outside of ourselves, that we need to speak like them, European settlers, look like them, be well like them. Your culture's not good enough. They, our ancestors, would have put aside their medicines, their natural medicines, because the Pākehā knew best. So this is talking about the process of colonisation where Western medicine was idealised and forcibly imposed on Māori. And we were taught by those European settlers through the process of colonisation that the system of Rongoā Māori was not credible, that it was not valid, and that it was not valuable, and that it's not scientifically efficient or effective or safe. So all of these ideas were taught to our ancestors, which contributed to the decline in use of Rongoā Māori, and also the decline in confidence in that system, and at the same time, the imposition of Western medical systems in New Zealand. So just a summary about what was and is Rongoā Māori. So one of the sub-themes was Te Ao Māori. So understanding and reaffirming connection to Te Ao Māori, atua, whakapapa and mātauranga for sustenance, safety and survival. So understanding mātauranga Māori, how it links to us and our whakapapa, and then using that information in order to keep us healthy and well. People talked about wairua. So alignment, in this case, they talked about alignment of our actions in life with spiritual guidance, whakapapa and rangatiratanga. So are we living a life? Are we doing the things that align with our roles as Māori, that align with our whakapapa and the intentions of our ancestors? People talked about Māori, and I've just written here, understanding and protecting the Māori and whakapapa of the natural environment through tikanga. So lots of people talk about kaitiakitanga in terms of protecting the natural environment and our ancestral lands, but also protecting the natural environment in its natural state. So that means stopping and limiting pollution. People talked about the role of tohunga. So in terms of not just being healers, but the role of tohunga as knowledge facilitators. So they were the teachers, they were the philosophers, the thinkers, and the researchers. And they facilitated that knowledge translation. And so the last part talks about mātauranga transfer, or knowledge transfer through generations. So we had really solid traditional Māori knowledge systems where our knowledge was transferred through generations, using many systems, including taonga, systems of indirect learning, and handing down of things through whānau ties. So some people talked about how our thinking around Rongoā Māori and our thinking around health and how we approach our health and how we approach seeking help for our health problems has changed. So some of the quotes say, so this is about a tohunga. She was a tohunga. She practiced Māori medicine, and I remember being terrified of her because she only ever spoke Māori. She was covered in tāmoko. She always looked grumpy and she had silvery grey eyes. I heard when she was a kid, they used to eat people because back then they did that, and I wouldn't go anywhere near her because she was scary. People have different beliefs about the rongoā, that it takes too long. So they want a quickie. But we go to the Pākehā and get the quick fix. I just go and get some pills from the chemist. I haven't been to a doctor for years. A lot of people might go to rongoā when they're dying and might not have ever used it ever before, but it's kind of medicine of last resort. Western medicine's not working, so we'll try this now. So those quotes are just talking about how our thinking in terms of rongoā has been influenced, where we think about tohunga as something scary and something to maybe shy away from. Oftentimes we are looking for something that's going to enable us to carry on with our day, I guess. So we're looking for quick fixes from the chemist, and we've been taught that the answers to our health problems are sometimes in pills. And rongoā very often is only sought as a last resort. So what happened in terms of colonisation? Rongoā suppression. So the suppression of rongoā as a system. Historical, systemic and legal outlawing of traditional Māori healing. So that was done through many means, including laws such as the Tohunga Suppression Act. Imperialising Western medicine. So at the same time as oppressing rongoā, support for Western medicine was heavily imposed in Aotearoa. There was lots of social acceptance, ease of access and proximity and affordability, and still is, to Western medicine. There was the colonisation of our intellectual sovereignty. So what that means is that there was an idealised and imperialised view of Western medicine. So Western medicine is the thing to do and the answer, I guess, to health problems. There was forced assimilation into using these systems. And then also the creation of internalized racism. So we started to have negative thoughts about our own systems of healing. and also the marginalisation of rongoā. So all of our health system basically is centred on Western medicine. The denial of mana rongoā. So use of the scientific evidence argument as justification for denial of Māori knowledge and rongoā credibility. And then again, the disruption of mātauranga Māori. So destruction and disruption of intergenerational knowledge transfer systems meant that traditional knowledge was not necessarily passed on. And in fact, the sharing of traditional Māori knowledge at the moment is threatened by commercialisation from non-Māori. What's happening now? So what are people doing now? And these quotes say, I don't usually take the time out of what is a very busy life. Then it becomes again a very slow deplete. Sometimes I get really unwell. Other times it will manifest in chaos. Then I think it also manifests for me in my back. That's a pretty telltale sign for me that I need to go home. There's a sense of disconnection, maintaining connectedness. So that's the most important thing. It's actually physically being present. What does it mean for, those whānau who are really struggling to survive, let alone then trying to think about, wellness in a different way? We have a lot of Māori who are lost. I think if people found their thing, the thing that makes them breathe, they will find that their life is a lot happier and a lot healthier as a result, because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing on this earth. Some more quotes say, Māori do go looking for help. In terms of wairua and spirituality, we've got referral rates to mental health services. The help we're offering is not really what they're after. It's not right. They'll give you a medicine, but all you've done is taking care of the body. There's also a spiritual connection to the earth and everything else that needs to be looked after. In mental health, and particularly with Māori, is they actually don't want tablets. They don't want to take the pills. They want something different. And it doesn't need a pill to say that you're nuts. It actually requires the normalisation, as you say, that whatever people are perceiving in this world, that it's actually okay. So a real mixture of experiences in terms of what's happening at the moment. And this is just a summary. So people talked about what are the realities of Māori whānau at the moment. And it just says here that whānau are actually struggling to survive. They have disconnection from te ao Māori, and they have illnesses that are developing in their bodies as a physical manifestation of the life demands and poverty that they're living in. So what that means is whānau are having real health problems. They're disconnected from te ao Māori. They're disconnected from their ancestral lands and mātauranga Māori and whakapapa and everything that it is to be Māori. And as a result of this disconnection, whānau are really having illness manifest in physical ways in their body. In terms of healthcare experiences, and particularly in terms of mental health, culturally, so services are culturally inappropriate and ineffective, particularly for mental health care. In mental health, there's unnecessary labelling and medicating of our whānau. In terms of governance and policy, there are laws that regulate rather than support rongoā. So what happens is, what's happening in terms of funding and regulations is that they actually support the appropriation and commercialisation of rongoā rather than the revitalisation of it. And in terms of a Māori space where we're trying to revitalise rongoā Māori on our own, we're having to negotiate the use of rongoā for healing, survival and whānau development, while also maintaining tikanga and kaitiakitanga. And there are some conflicts going on there in terms of who is making and using and selling rongoā Māori and for what purpose. And just looking forwards in terms of what will be. Basically, I've just talked about rongoā as being whatever it is that we will self-determine that it will be, as informed by our understanding of mātauranga Māori and whakapapa Māori and tikanga Māori. So just a few ideas in here. One key part is the reclaiming of our health sovereignty. So reclaiming sovereignty over our own well-being as Māori by decolonising our minds, having confidence in our own mātauranga and self-determining solutions to our own well-being. So that means that, you know, a key part of Rongoā Māori is decolonising what it is that we think we're talking about when we're talking about health, decolonising what we think about rongoā, and reaffirming its credibility, the credibility of mātauranga Māori, and having the confidence to embrace and explore the use of mātauranga and whakapapa for our own well-being purposes, and not necessarily having to rely on Western health systems. In terms of governance and strategy, there needs to be multi-level governance and strategic planning, community-driven initiatives, and teaching of our tamariki around Rongoā Māori. And in particular, access to information. So there needs to be investment in rongoā information sharing, database and resource development, use of media and technology tools to promote interaction and self-determined care. So Māori are really keen to use technology advancements in a way that supports the revitalisation of everything that it means to be Māori. So just in summary, just thinking about where it is that we're going in terms of Rongoā Māori, but really in the bigger scheme of things, where is it that we're going in terms of meeting our Māori health aspirations, meeting the needs of Māori in terms of health and well-being, and what are the strategies and initiatives that we're going to use to get there? And if we think about Hauora Māori as simply as the freedom to be Māori, then what are the strategies and activities that we're going to use to get there? And if we're going to think about funding and supporting activities that are healing for our people, then we should be thinking about these things. We should be thinking about, you know, swimming in our natural environment that's not polluted. Funding activities like tāmoko that have really, really deep and positive influences to our mental well-being. Embracing our understanding of the natural environment, in particular. So in this example, our scientific understandings of the natural environment. For example, we know that kinas are fat and ready to eat when pahurikawa trees are flowering. So reframing our thinking around health and well-being, and that these are the things that are a part of rongoā systems, and we should be funding those rather than focusing on health conditions and diseases. And just to finish off, just a big mihi to everyone that supported me to complete this PhD mahi, and there's some contact details there. Kia ora koutou.